Well, it's time to talk about the mini teach. It's going to be a little more mini than you might have expected, given the online nature of the course. I've taken a long, hard look at where we need to be right now and the type of experiences you're likely to have. And so I've modified the traditional mini teach we've done in the past. Um, you're really in excellent situation right now because you've already done the first portion of it when you did your planning midterm exam where you showed you knew how to plan. I was hoping we'd have a little more opportunity for you to actually teach it, but in communication with different students and other instructors, it appears to me that it's not overly realistic, except possibly in an online session. So what I've done is I've modified the mini teach to take advantage of this need. And you notice I say to take advantage of this need. I view every challenge as being an opportunity to do something different, to take advantage of this need to better use technology. So what we're going to be doing is, as we look forward to the mini teach, there's a slight change in the planning and the reporting you're going to have to do. So let me go ahead and share my screen a little bit here, and we'll walk our way through what's going to be required of you to complete the mini teach. This is the traditional version of the planning and reporting sheets that you would use for the mini teach, and you will notice that I have them in both PDF and document form. I also have a sample here, but this is going to be a little bit of a moot point because what we're going to be doing is slightly different. We are going to be using the planning sheet, however. So let me go ahead and I'll pull this up so we can take a look at it, and then we'll talk about what you'll be doing that's different from this. Typically, there would be two parts to this. There'd be a planning section, which you have really already done, but there would also be a reporting section. We're not going to hold you accountable for filling out the reporting section of the mini teach. So let me be sure on this. The only portion you'll be filling out will be the planning sheet. I do want you to use this format because this is the format that people will be using when they do program evaluation and looking for this work. And so you'll put your name down. Under school, you'll not need to put anything there. Room would be where you'd put the classroom number and the time. Under topic, if you remember, topic is a code word. That means TEK. So make sure that you select a TEK that's appropriate for the grade level you plan on teaching. Under materials, you're going to list whether it's base 10 blocks or Cuisenaire rods or Judy clocks or whatever it is you actually ended up using. And I will encourage you to take a picture of the materials you're using and put that in as the second page in your presentation. So we'll walk our way through that when we take a look at the actual structure of the exam. Down here where it's asking you to circle the areas that you plan on, if I were teaching with physical objects, for example, base 10 blocks, one of the first things I would have to do is I would have to develop vocabulary at the memory recall level. So I would circle this intersection. You see where I'm going around here with the cursor? That's the intersection that I would circle. And that shows that in my planning, I recognize that I'm going to be using physical objects and we're going to be developing vocabulary. I would then probably circle a teacher posed problem to show that I'm going to be posing a problem for the students to work with. Under the comments section, please, please, please remember this is not the UHD lesson plan. This is a mini teach. And so here, write notes to yourself that would be meaningful for you when it's time for you to go and actually teach this concept. So, you're thinking ahead a little bit, planning justifiably so, in terms of what it is you would do to actually teach this concept. In a regular class, when we have more access to students, you would actually teach it and then you'd give me a report. You see, there's the reporting sheet. We're not going to worry about that for this semester, however, because of the COVID and also because of the online nature of the course. So this is the sheet that we're going to actually be using for the mini teach. I am going to ask you to do 2 sets of readings because as the modification, instead of actually teaching it, you're going to be finding resources online that you can use to teach in an online setting. So I have some readings for you that will help. The first is Teaching and Learning Mathematics in Technology-Intensive Classrooms. When we click here, you'll see there's a paper for you or a PowerPoint. It has the same information in both, depending on what it is that you are more comfortable in reading. I think you'll find this is very helpful. When Sergey and I wrote this, we wrote it specifically to give people a background who may have thought a little bit about teaching with technology and mathematics, but may not have had a lot of practice with it yet. So I think you'll find this is helpful. The other reading that I'm going to ask you to do is AI or IA, that's artificial intelligence or intelligence amplification. There's the PDF file, so this is where you'll click on it. I do recognize it's a little bit older paper, but the ideas that I put forth here are still current today, and in fact, I get more citations on this one than a lot of the more current papers we put out in the same area. So in preparation for doing the mini teach, this is the background reading that you'll want to do. When we go over now to see what it is that we're going to be responsible for in the mini teach, we'll go over to where the coursework is, and we'll see where it says exams and tests. This is taking the place of your final exam, so we'll click here. And what you should see at this point is the final project. The mini teach is available to you. And when you are ready to submit it, you'll click here, and like any other assignment, you'll have the opportunity of submitting it. Due date here, December 11th, and I will accept it anytime up until that point. The directions, basically, first of all, take it seriously. This is really the only assignment you don't have the opportunity to redo. So please take it seriously. Neatness counts, obviously. I would suggest word processing it. Don't just write this out. And the order counts. This is something that I don't want you to get penalized for. If you put the materials in and they're out of order, it's marked down. So please be sure when you create your final PDF, you put them in the correct order. The other thing you want to do is make sure you don't leave things out. On occasion, on some of your assignments in the past, I've seen some people who have left out key components. This will be a problem here in terms of losing points if you do. When we're talking about the planning sheet, that's the sheet that I showed you. And so be sure you fill that in. That's going to be your cover. That should be the first thing someone sees when they open up the PDF file that contains your mini teach. You will then put a picture of the manipulatives. I'm going to encourage you to take a picture of every manipulative. We did not use the manipulative identification sheet this semester because you were not in the schools and were not able to see the manipulatives in action. Here is what we're doing instead. You're going to be finding online 4 websites where students could learn the topic, remember topic is TEAC, that you have selected that you're going to be teaching. Then for each website, don't leave this out now, provide a description of why you think this resource is appropriate for the age of the student and the topic you've selected. Do not complete the reporting sheet. All right, this is all you have to do is this section up here. You're then going to scan these materials into a single PDF file, and that's what you will submit as a response to this particular exam. Of the type of resources that are available, this is one of my favorites, the National Library of Virtual Manipulatives. You notice how we can select from this grid the topic by the grade level. So if I'm doing number and operations, for example, and I'm thinking of something 3rd through 5th grade, I can click here and it'll give me a whole series of options, and some of these are quite clever. So if we look at the base 10 blocks, for example, look what I can do. I can represent number very nicely, and not only that, but as I represent number, look what happens when we get beyond the 10. Because if you can regroup, you must regroup, and this is how you do it. So let me show you what happens when we regroup here. We select all of them, and you notice that it groups itself, and it doesn't tell us what number it is until we've represented it properly. Again, a lot of good materials are online. This particular set of tools is quite nice in terms of being able to follow up with the models that you've been learning. For example, if I can find the multiplication here, let's just look very quickly. Yeah, here we go, multiplication. If we look at multiplication, you'll notice they're using an area model, which is the model that we've been most familiar with. And if we look at it here, you'll notice it even gives us a way of looking at those 4 different pieces, the 10 times 10, the 10 times 1. They've combined these a little bit. But again, very, very nice model for us to take a look at. So I hope you see that it is possible for you to find some very powerful tools that you can use. And this is the type of thing we're going to be asking you to find. Very Googleable. You can Google and you can find a lot of resources here. Be sure you find 4, and then for each of the 4, you'll say why you selected this particular resource and why you feel it's appropriate for the age of the student and the topic that you've selected. I hope that you actually find this helpful for you. In modifying the mini-teach, I really wanted to make it meaningful, particularly in this challenging environment we find ourselves in. And the more I thought about it, the more it occurred to me that if I could help you in your exploration of online resources, you would be able to make immediate use of this, as well as having the opportunity to show that you know how to use online materials in instruction. As always, if you have any questions on the mini-teach, please feel free to contact me. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. What I can't do this time is to provide feedback on drafts. This is the final, and so as such, you have to have a little responsibility for that. And so, you can ask general questions, but I won't be able to give you draft feedback, unfortunately. I do hope that you keep in touch, that just because the semester is over doesn't mean that you can't send feedback and comments, and stay in touch with your colleagues. You've had some challenging times here and you've pulled through quite admirably, I think. So I wish you the best of luck on the mini-teach. You have until December 11th at midnight. You can submit it as early as you'd like. I would encourage you, however, to really take your time and to do the best work you can. This tends to be what differentiates between the A's and the B's in this class. The people who get B's tend to be the ones who didn't take this seriously. The reason for that, I think, is obvious. It's because I give you the opportunity to redo every other assignment to get the maximum points possible. The last piece of advice I would give you is to go through your discussions. Make sure you've posted to every discussion. Make sure you've posted to every assignment. Don't worry if something is showing up in the grade center that's not in the discussion list or is not in the assignment list. Blackboard will sometimes populate these with assignments from past sections. For the life of me, I'm not sure why, but it happens. And so all you're responsible for are the discussions and the assignments that I've given you that are showing up in the discussion and assignment sections. The mini-teach, of course, is your exam. That'll be the final assignment, as it were. And I wish you the very best as you prepare for both your licensing exam as well as your career as being a future educator.